Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heather Elmer, and I'm like to welcome you to the Chagrin River Watershed Partners Quarterly Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to thank all of you for joining this afternoon. In a minute, I'll be turning it over to our board president, Mayor Bill Tomko of Chagrin Falls. But first, I wanted to go over just a few housekeeping items with Zoom. And if you could go to the next slide. If you are joining us today via Zoom and your name is not displayed with your video window, you can click the three dots in the upper right corner of your screen and change your name if necessary. And if you're having any problems with this, please feel free to send a chat message to Linda Moran or Mackenzie Snyder, and they can help you. And as far as participating in today's meeting, you can hover your mouse on the bottom of the screen to activate the Zoom toolbar and click on the chat in that toolbar to open the chat window. And we ask that you use this feature to submit questions or comments. We'll answer as many questions as we can during today's meeting. And if we're unable to get to your question, we'll follow up with you afterward. You can also participate by clicking on reactions in your control bar. And this is how you can raise and lower your hand to either offer a motion or a second if you're a member of our board of directors. And also for those of you who are members of our board, you can vote on motions by clicking the green check mark or the red X within the reactions window as well. And if there are any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll be glad to assist you with participating today. And with that, I want to turn it back over to our board president, Mayor Bill Tomko, to call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Heather. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming today. It's just a gorgeous day out, and I'm sure a lot of you would rather be doing other things, but thank you for coming and supporting the work that we do. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the May 19th directors meeting. And I believe you all have had copies. Does anybody have any changes, alterations, etc. to the minutes? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I can't see, Linda, if we have a motion to approve. Oh, we do, from Susan. And do we have a second? Excuse me. Okay, and Greg seconded it. All in favor of approving the minutes, signal, or if you have a problem, signal that. Not seeing any objections. Linda, I assume that's correct.
Correct.
We'll approve the minutes as submitted, and we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Heather, you want to lead us through the treasurer's report?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Tomko. This is the treasurer's report for the month of August 2022. And for the month of August, we had $23,583 in assets released from restrictions, $363,620 in government grants. And the bulk of that was for our work on an H2 Ohio project in Willoughby, 1,552 in government agency revenue, 1,419 in local government contracts and fees, 6,093 in program service fees, and $38 in interest. So our total income for the month was $396,304, and we're at 32% of our budgeted revenue for the year. And on the expense side, we had $386,571 in program-related contract expenses. Most of that was associated with our H2 Ohio project. There was also some funding to support the Northern Ohio Watershed Core program through a grant from the George Gund Foundation. Our participation in that program in the form of host site fees, also a contract with River Reach Construction for design and construction of a restoration project on 9 Mile Creek, and support for the U.S. Geological Survey stream gauge at Daniels Park in Willoughby. Salaries and related expenses for August were $51,387. Professional services were $215, and that's payroll processing and some IT support. $1,591 for non-personnel expenses, which includes supplies and postage, software subscriptions, $825 in occupancy, $610 in travel expenses, $76 in other expenses, which included an annual fee for our Raymond James account. So our total expenses for the month were $441,274. And our year-to-date expenses are here on the slide, $1,286,413. We're at 34% of our budgeted expenses year-to-date. And you can see where we are in terms of our net income for the current month and year-to-date. Currently, year-to-date, we're at negative $69,265. And we bill quarterly on many of the projects that we're managing. So we'll make up, part of this shortfall at the end of the quarter when we do our invoicing for the third quarter. We can move to the next slide. This just shows our current cash position. We currently have $152,942 in unrestricted cash remaining, and then some board restricted and use restricted balances. And our year-to-date cash is $428,335. And we did have significant receivables at the end of August, and they're still quite significant, $351,229. Of that, $312,000 is a reimbursement that we're expecting from Odnr for our H2 Ohio project. Another $32,000 is for the 9 Mile project, which we should be getting from EPA here shortly. And that is all I have for the treasurer's report. I'd be glad to answer any questions I have.
Heather, I saw that we had occupancy expense in your rundown of the August expenses. Is our office complete in Willoughby or Eastlake, excuse me? And where do we stand on that?
Yeah, the office is complete, and Linda and Mackenzie have done a great job setting it up this fall. And starting in mid-October, we will have our new AmeriCorps members will be based at that office, and our staff will rotate through the office. At any given time, we may have 1 or 2 staff members there in addition to the AmeriCorps members.
Okay. Is there any questions on the treasurer's report for the month of August? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report? John, is there a second? I can't see, Linda, if there's a second.
Susan
Yes, Susan.
Cicletto.
Okay, and with that, I'd move to accept the treasurer's report. Signify by saying yes, or chat, raise your hand, I guess.
There are no no's. And
Okay, the treasurer's report is accepted, and we'll move on to one of the most important things, the budget outlook, where we stand and where we are for the rest of this year. Linda, Heather.
Great, thank you. And we can move to the next slide. This is just a summary of our projected revenue and expenses based on our progress billing with a variety of projects this year. And as you can see, we have a good deal of revenue that we need already secured in the form of awarded grants and service agreements, $1,739,947. And that's in addition to our member dues, sponsors, donated services, and other donations, which were $164,079. We also have significant funds still pending and additional planned grants and service agreements that could generate revenue in 2022. I just want to call everyone's attention to this secured and high confidence revenue is currently $1.95 million. It's a little bit less than our projected expenses for the year. So we still have $68,725 to secure, but with all the funds that we currently have pending and planned and our typical success rate, I think that we should be in good shape for the year. and, come close to a balanced budget. I do want to mention that these numbers are quite a bit less than our approved 2022 budget. And what we've done is that we've gone in and updated our projections based on our actuals through the end of August and our projected revenue and expense for three major projects that we're managing in-house. So the H2 Ohio project, the 9 Mile project, and the Great Lakes Commission. Those projects are all moving along just fine, but for some of them, the major expense of construction won't be beginning till kind of late this year and into the first quarter of 2023. So we've updated the projections here to reflect all of that. But all in all, I think we're in a very strong position. A lot of great projects in the pipeline. And Tim, if you can move to the next slide, I just want to point out a variety of the projects that we're currently scoping with our members and partners. Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grants, Ohio EPA Section 319 grants. We're also scoping a potential service agreement between the Central Lake Erie Collaborative and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and working with a collaborative to identify opportunities to submit requests for to support large-scale projects through funding sources like GLRI, H2 Ohio, NOAA, other pots of funding that have been expanded or initiated under the bipartisan infrastructure law or the Inflation Reduction Act. So, we do feel that the 2022 budget is shaping up well, and based on our preliminary numbers for 2023, we've already secured or have high confidence that we'll secure approximately 93% of our preliminary budgeted expenses for 2023. And we'll be working on drafting that budget with the executive committee here throughout October and November, and we'll present that 2023 budget to the board for consideration at your December board meeting. But that is all I have in terms of updates on the budget outlook, and I'd be glad to answer any questions anyone may have.
Not seeing any questions. I would ask if there is a motion and a second to approve the budget outlook. John's made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Susan
there's-
Sabella.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. And
There are no no's.
all right, well, the
Yes.
budget outlook is approved. Move on to the membership dues for proposed dues for next year. And Heather, you want to start this, and I'll jump in where necessary.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, just want to remind everyone that membership dues are really vital to Chagrin River Watershed Partners and all of our members. The dues pay for some of our operating costs and part of our work that creates watershed-wide benefits, things like watershed planning, research and model code development. They enhance our capacity to leverage funding for stream and wetland restoration projects, for stormwater and park improvement projects, and really help us to maintain and attract a team of talented and qualified professionals that can work with all of our members and partners to create effective solutions to watershed challenges. And in addition to our watershed scale work, if we can move to the next slide, we also work with our members and partners in one-on-one for projects that create a variety of benefits. So we do a lot of project development work, writing grants in partnership with our members for things like the Chagrin River Stream Bank Stabilization and Riparian Restoration project in Chagrin Falls that you can see in the slide here. We help our members with adopting and implementing codes that can help manage stormwater and protect stream corridors, provide technical assistance for residents and businesses. We assist with development plan review and help our members maintain compliance with stormwater regulations. And the membership dues are a very important component of this in terms of foundational funding to support the organization and enabling us to leverage additional resources. And if we move to the next slide, the executive committee has made a recommendation for 2023 membership dues. This follows somewhat closely along with the committee's recommendation for membership dues in 2022, in that it's to have a dues increase that's equal to the percentage increase in the Cleveland area consumer price index for the 12 months ending October 31st, 2022, or 5%, whichever is less. And the executive committee, some of the members of the committee in making this recommendation wanted to note that, this is a bit of an underpricing of the CRWP membership related to the current inflationary condition that we're experiencing. So it may be, a bit larger member dues increase than we've had in recent years, but relative to inflation, we're setting it a bit lower. And as we did last year, because we're setting this based on the change in CPI as of the end of October, we would inform members of their 2023 dues amounts in mid-November. And with that, I might ask if you, Mayor Tomko, have anything to add on behalf of the executive committee related to this recommendation.
No, it was the committee's, the executive committee's decision to go with the formula and ask for a 5% increase, even though the inflationary rate is running about 8%. So it's a significant amount less than our expenses. And as a mayor, I approve, the expenses that the village is seeing. And frankly, I'm shocked at some of the price increases that have come through. And hopefully the Federal Reserve will get the inflation under control. But almost all of our expenses, the Watershed partners, are either people expenses or their purchase of materials, none of which we have any real control over. And so I know it is more than most people have been used to, but it's still less than what we anticipate our expenses going up. We'll try to make up that difference with grants, and we have raised the rates that we have in the grant request. So I don't know what else I can answer with the facts. Everybody's aware of the facts from reading the newspaper to going to the grocery store.
And if thanks very much for that, Mayor Tomko, and we can see if any questions are coming in. We'd be glad to answer those. And Tim, if you could advance to the next slide and the following slide. This is just for members of the board's reference, current dues amounts for 2022 and proposed 2023 dues amounts. So we can toggle back and forth between those while we entertain any questions you might have. Linda, do we see any questions, or is anyone asking to be recognized?
No, there's no questions in the chat either.
All right, so we're not going to ask for any vote on this. That'll be at the next board meeting. But I wanted everyone to be aware of the situation that we find ourselves in. So with no questions, Linda, do you want to, Heather, do you want to move on to the next item on the agenda, the Notre Dame Latin?
Yes, we'd be glad to do that. I believe in past years, the board has acted on membership dues at the September meeting because
I'm sorry.
We use that in order to build our budget, which the board then approves in December.
Okay, I'm sorry. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the 5%. And I see John has made that motion. Is there a second?
Susan.
Susan, second. All in favor, signal by raising your hand, or opposed by, no. I see one abstention.
And I don't see any no's.
All right, well then that is approved, and we will finalize the budget in the December meeting, reflecting that that kind of an increase. Regrettable but necessary. All right, now we could move on to the Notre Dame Cathedral Latin stream restoration.
Thanks so much, Mayor Tomko. And while our guest speakers are calling up their presentations, I'd just like to go ahead and introduce Kaylee Akers, the Watershed Education and Outreach Specialist with Chagrin River Watershed Partners, and Christina Zendarczyk, a Senior Associate Consultant with Davie Resource Group. Kaylee led this project for Chagrin River Watershed Partners in collaboration with Munson Township, and Christina Zendarczyk was the consultant team lead for the project, and we're really glad that she can join us today, and the two of them can give you an overview of the project. So I'll turn it over to Kaylee.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, we'd just like to share with everyone about this project that was recently completed. CRWP did assist Munson Township with this project, and as Heather mentioned, Christina Zendarczyk with Davie Resource Group is here to give a presentation on the stream restoration work. But first, I'll just give a little bit of background about the project. So the purpose of this project was to restore 600 linear feet of stream and a ½ acre of riparian area along an unnamed tributary of the Chagrin River. This stream is located on the campus of Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, which is a private high school, which is leased from the land owned by the Sisters of Notre Dame. This stream was heavily eroded and causing sedimentation issues downstream, as well as threatening the nearby infrastructure at the school's athletic fields, which you can see in the photo on the left there. So in 2019, Munson Township was awarded an Ohio EPA Section 319 grant for $174,600, with $116,400 in local match committed from the township, with reimbursement by the Sisters. CRWP assisted the township with grant writing and administration, education and outreach, subcontract and permitting work, and executing landowner agreements. Geauga Soil and Water Conservation District provided plan review and construction management and oversight for the project. And Davie Resource Group, in partnership with Marks Construction, was selected as the design build team to complete the restoration work. So now I'll hand it over to Christina to talk more about the restoration.
Great, thanks, Kaylee. And I do appreciate you volunteering to advance the slides for me. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about me. A lot of you may know me, some of you may not. I may be a new face. This is my official term. I am a senior associate consultant for Davie Resource Group. I lead the design build team. So what do we do in design build? We manage stream and wetland restoration projects. And as you can see in that photo, we also wear high-vis PPE like absolute rock stars. I am also known by some unofficial terms, not including, including things like riparian superhero, watershed cowgirl, and professional cat herder. But I am also a CRWP and an NDCL alum. So it is super doubly exciting for me to be here to talk to you guys about this project. Next slide, please, Kaylee. So this is an overview of the project site. I bracketed out the approximate length of the restoration in yellow, so you can see the restoration areas between those two yellow brackets roughly. This is my old high school. The DRG project duration is July 13th, 2021 to September 30, 2022. So we were involved with the project for a little over the year, and we'll be closing out some work with CRWP and Notre Dame Cathedral Latin and the Sisters by the end of the month. We did reach substantial construction completion on the project in March 15th, so earlier this year. Just some things to note in this photo is looking at this, the proximity to the Chagrin River. So even though this is an unnamed tributary, it is still fairly important in terms of making sure that we're controlling erosion and sediment in this particular project location, because it does have a pretty material effect on the Chagrin River main stem. Next slide, please. So some of the constraints that we identified on this site, we have some legacy infrastructure. There's a storm outlet that outlets directly into the stream in the project area from Lions Stadium. I kept the aerial in so you can kind of see that proximity of the stadium to the stream. There's a lot of constraints just physically. The site, there's not literally any wiggle room for this stream to move, essentially. It's blocked in by infrastructure. There's a pond to the north that the Sisters want to remain, so we did not touch it. There's actually a boundary line, property boundary line that we were instructed preferentially not to cross. So we kind of set that as our northern limit of construction. And then to the south, we have Lions Stadium. We have shot put courts that unfortunately did have to be lost as the result of this project. And there's that open field where the band practices and students do use that area. So, you know, there wasn't really a lot to work with here in terms of really opening this project up. So, and you have these very steep, tall banks. So, you know, in terms of that amount of grade work that has to happen and how to give this stream what it needs in terms of water quality and produce a good project, there were a lot of constraints here in terms of what we were able to do. Next slide, please. So one of the big issues that we saw here from a water quality problem was a head cut. So this stream is pretty severely head cutting, and a head cut essentially forms when a nick point forms in the bed of a stream. The nick point can form through many different ways, sometimes just from dredging, like actually extracting sand and gravel from the bed, or, you know, something happens in the stream, some log falls in, some tree falls in, it creates some kind of instability there and touches off that nick point. And what it does is it degrades the stream from up and down. So it goes upstream to try to reestablish its stream equilibrium by eroding away at the nick point. So the nick point kind of goes up the stream, which is what we call the head cut. And then it also degrades the stream further downstream by depositing erosion and sediment further downstream. So a common issue with the head cutting stream is you'll see an entrenched channel characterized by steep, unstable banks. Next slide, please. So, yep, we're definitely seeing that here. You can see that entrenched stream. You can see those very steep vertical banks, to say nothing of the threatened infrastructure as well with this project. So definitely this was a site where something needed to be done. And we can substantially improve water quality just by making some good adjustments here. Next slide, please. So our initial concept has some basic parts of it. Big one is to control the grade within the channel, i.e. stop that head cut. We were proposing several grade control structures through the channel. We actually ended up adding more through the design process because of material in the bank and also the grades that we were dealing with. So you wanted to be able to step those down a little bit more. We wanted to try to create as much floodplain area as feasible. So there's that light purple area to the left of the project at call out D. You can see that there. That was where we were actually able to, where the project kind of flattened out a little bit. We were able to carve out some floodplain there just to provide a little bit of extra room, a relief point for the water moving downstream when it rises up. We proposed to do a lot of bank grading for this project. We were constrained in terms of how much bank we could grade on the northern bank, but we were able to grade back a significant amount of bank on the southern bank to open up more of that access. We also proposed to grade the bed, which raises the bed elevation and also kind of creates more floodplain because you're widening the channel inadvertently by raising the floodplain elevation against the banks. And then planting that natural riparian buffer with native vegetation along the newly graded stream banks for stability and for habitat benefit. As a part of this project, we also said we would investigate the storm drainage coming from Lions Stadium. And in the course of the drainage investigation, we understood pretty quickly that this was something that needed to be directly addressed. And so the school very generously paid out of pocket for additional work to alleviate that storm pressure there. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of some of the design elements that we put in from the design and also them being in the project. So we proposed a series of what are called in-stream rock sills and riffles, which riffles are basically just, groupings, clusters of rocks that help break up the force of flow, oxygenate the stream, and also provide grade control and stability in the structure. The rock sills are placed at the footer part of the rock riffle sequence to act as sort of a further, more solid grade control and also to literally step the project down safely as you move down through the project area. So the left image, you can see those sills and riffles in a sequence. There's about 3 of them there, and you can kind of see those sills running perpendicular with the stream. The picture to the right, I have it called out to that rock sill riffle sequence and then the pool. So you can see that sequence of pool, riffle, pool down through the project area. And as it steps down, the pools act as those stilling zones, refugia for critters and habitat. And then the rock riffles act as the grade control and oxygenate the stream and improve the water quality. Next slide, please. And then this is an example of us grading that back. So you can see there was some pretty significant bank grading and roughing up of the soil through here. The sills and riffles are already installed in this particular section of the project, and our team is coming in and doing the grading, matting, and seeding. We described this site as we were doing this work in early March, February and March, as dirt pudding. It was really hard to move around. The picture doesn't really do it justice. Kaylee can testify. She had to get pulled out of the mud at one point by more than one person in one go. And it was pretty sticky out there. Next slide, please. And then this is the stormwater solution. It seems a little anticlimactic, but essentially what we did was the current storm outlet, or the existing storm outlet, was outletting perpendicular to the stream, directly into the stream. So at basically at a T intersection with the stream. And this was causing scour on the opposite bank. And also sediment was depositing at the culvert entrance, the outlet entrance, creating an issue there where they would have to go in and periodically dig out that outlet in order to clear it, because you could see in the earlier photo that it was essentially more than half blocked at that particular moment. So they were constantly having to come in and clear it out, which again, going back to that conversation about the head cut, would trigger a nick point. And then you would have that head cut moving upstream and depositing more sediment downstream and blocking up the outlet again. And it was just this never ending cycle. So what we did was we altered that. We cut it off and closed it, cut it back, and then actually ran a junction down to outlet at an angle that's more parallel to the stream rather than perpendicular to the stream. And we upsized it a little bit to essentially create a self-cleaning system. So you don't have to really worry about it getting blocked anymore, because it works more with the flow rather than against the flow. And you don't have that scour and deposition of sediment happening because you're not having this constant retriggering of nick points and head cutting. That coupled with the grade control should be, I've been out checking it pretty regularly since we put this in, and it seems to be working very well so far. So we're really hoping that that will help alleviate the long-term maintenance on this site for the school. Next slide, please. So here's some before, during, and after photos. This was before, this was March 29th, 2018. It was even worse, if you can believe it, when we went out there again in 2021 to kind of examine the site. But you can see those steep slopes, that threatened infrastructure, the narrow stream cutting down in the channel. Next slide. And then this is during February 24th, 2022. So earlier this year, you can see us beginning to pull back those banks and really grade them out. You can see that scoreboard in the back as a reference for the next photo. And we're starting to pull that back. And then now you can see that it's all pulled back and it's all graded out. It's quite a difference. And the stream bed in that channel has been graded now. So you can see that there's even like less of a drop now between the base of the slope and the top of the slope where the stream is. Next slide, please. And then this is after. This was just this last month. I went out and took some photos of how the site is greened up and improved. It's really coming in nicely. I'm very happy with how it's turned out. It's very stable and it seems to be functioning just fine. So all in all, a good little project, and I can't wait to come back in the subsequent seasons because we have a 2-year plant warranty on the plant material to see how. Next slide, please. So this is looking upstream of before and after. So you can see that narrowed channel, that constrained entrenched channel where you have these berms on either side. We were able to open those up, give the channel more room to breathe, so to speak, and then also integrating those rock sill structures to step the stream down the grade and reduce head cutting and eliminate that excessive erosion that was happening there. So we have a much more stable system now. Next slide, please. And then this is just some upshots of the native plantings. This is again from just last month. Things are starting to come in. It usually takes a couple seasons for a native planting to really come into its own. So I was particularly excited to see some of these perennials already coming in. We geared the pollinator meadow at the school to have more green and gold flower or blue and gold flowers to be in line with the school colors of blue and gold. So you know, if this comes in, it's going to look really cool and also be a really cool visible thing for the students to enjoy. So I'll be keeping an eye on that and making sure we have the correct proportions of blue to gold. Next slide, please. Also, because it's a school and it's my old school, we got to do a lot of really good education and outreach. I got to take the students on a tour and kind of act as in a mentorship role, and which was really fun for me to be able to teach them about stream restoration techniques. And we had a couple of them come out and help out with a volunteer planting. You can see them moving through that dirt pudding. We didn't lose any students. We did lose a couple boots, but everybody was safe by the end of it and they all had a good time. And then I also got a glow up in the high school alumni annual report because they were like, well, this is a great opportunity to profile this and also educate the entire alumni about, the value of these types of projects. So that was also very fun to do with the school. Next slide, please. We also put together a long-term management plan for them and came up with several solutions for not just long-term management of the actual site itself, but also looking at the site more holistically in its watershed space. The restoration plan includes recommendations for just, standard invasive species control, what types of species they'd encounter, the methods of control and the timeframes to be doing it, inspection sheets for the stream and stormwater components of the project, just general recommendations for good land management practices regarding planting, mowing, trimming, and trash. There will be an environmental covenant placed on the site to protect it in perpetuity that we're currently working on. And then we also recommended some further improvements, looking at sort of that whole watershed upstream area and seeing if there's any ways to improve stormwater management up there. There's some older infrastructure that might have gone in prior to stormwater management requirements. And, there could be some opportunities there for green infrastructure or retrofitting to further improve stormwater management upstream to help mitigate flows coming downstream. And also downstream, there's a small bridge crossing that is basically the sole access across the creek at this point. And it doesn't have a lot of freeboard. It's acting currently as a pinch point and building up a lot of sediment. So we offered some recommendations for modifying that crossing along with what permits might be required to do that modification to better improve that and give it more freeboard. We can't necessarily eliminate the crossing because they do need a crossing, but I think there can be room for improvement there quite literally. Next slide, please. And with that, I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have about the project.
Thanks so much, Kaylee and Christina, for that great presentation. It's been a pleasure to work with Munson Township and Davie Resource Group, and as well as the school, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, on this project. And does anyone have any questions for Christina or Kaylee? Seeing no questions, we can move on to our next presentation, Local Flood Alerts for Your Community by Brandon Wong of Hi-Fi. And many of you may remember Brandon from past board meetings, but before he begins, I'd like to just give another brief introduction to refresh everyone's memory on Brandon and the project we've been working on with him. We all know that urban flooding is posing challenges in our area, and that those challenges have been increasing over time with more frequent intense storms and heavy rainfalls. And all of that really can put people and businesses and infrastructure at risk. And what Hi-Fi has developed and deployed through this pilot project is a network of real-time internet connected sensors which closely monitor water levels. And we were able to participate in this project. We were one of 3 regions in the Great Lakes that were selected here in Northeast Ohio. And we were able to do that with the participation of all of you, a partnership with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District and Lake County Stormwater Management Department and others to install a network of 55 water level sensors along streams, lakes, ponds, and stormwater basins across Northeast Ohio. And the Great Lakes Protection Fund pilot project has just wrapped up, and we thought we would give Brandon an opportunity to share some of the outcomes of the project with you, and also to update you on our efforts to sustain the monitoring network through cost share agreements with our members and partners. And with that, I will turn it over to Brandon. And Brandon, I'm not sure if you have the ability to share your screen. If not, we will get that fixed for you.
Let's see. I think we're good.
There you go. Great.
All right, cool. Heather, thank you for that introduction. And that was really cool, I think, to see what Christina and Kaylee were working on too. It's exciting to see like the restoration work and healthy watersheds and all that. And I know the Great Lakes Protection Fund really loves that stuff too. So really happy to see that there's a lot of really exciting activity happening in the Chagrin River watershed. And hopefully this will help add some additional layers to that as well. So again, I'm Brandon, CEO, co-founder of Hi-Fi. And yeah, like Heather mentioned, this was a couple of years ago or so. One of the the first time I met Heather, the first time I was at a board meeting, is still in person, and it's really cool, I think, to learn about like the organization and all the fantastic work that's happening. And I wanted to set the context a little bit here, because going back a few years ago, there was some pretty interesting phenomena happening around the Great Lakes. So we're based in Ann Arbor in Southeast Michigan, and these photos are of a big flood that happened in Detroit in 2014. It was actually the most expensive flood on record that year. More so than anything in Texas or Florida, is actually in Detroit. And the wild thing is, you know, it happens to occur year after year, these 500-year type floods. And we also look towards Cleveland, and we see like also year after year, there's this persistent localized flooding. And it seems like, you know, ultimately locally, there's, you know, a lot of problems that can be really a challenge to manage. And we approached the Great Lakes Protection Fund and, you know, started to recognize that this was not something that's just Detroit or Cleveland, but perhaps like throughout a number of other communities, including the Chagrin River watershed. And so that's what ultimately helped us, you know, decide this would be a great opportunity to work with them and, you know, just look into the history of like the Chagrin. This is one example of the river escaping a dam in Gates Mills, and not only escaping the dam, but flooding some of the nearby communities. And I know that dam is no longer there, but interestingly enough, even though that this was in 2011, there's still, you know, a flood risk. And so this is pulled from February earlier this year, where there is still a warning about a possible flooding. And so I wanted to transport us to that time in February. And so this was actually around February 14th or so when, you know, this was first sort of coming onto the radar. And the conversations that we were having internally, say with Heather and some of our other partners on the ground, was like this. We saw that there's about a ½ inch of rain, and this was about, what we'll see here is the forecast of on Thursday, a weather front coming through. And what the interesting phenomena was, even though that may not be a lot of rain, there was quite a bit of snow on the ground. And so fast forward to the 17th of February, what changed now as opposed to 10 years before is we have monitors to help us detect these events. So what I've highlighted is a couple of the data that's been collected, particularly where we see the water levels build up and then release as a result of this ice jam. And what was pretty fascinating and pretty cool was that it was able to be turned into something actionable, where there are folks on the ground who are able to go in and capture, you know, this event once again and see, like, here's a photo of an ice jam as it's coming past the walkways, or in Michigan, this was how it was impacting the roadway over there. So to have these two pieces of information to help, I think, support this story is, I think, maybe a new kind of frontier of how we can help communicate not only what's happening on the ground, but maybe think about some decisions moving forward. And so rewinding back, when we were first starting in 2020, this is the outline of the Chagrin River watershed. And what I've highlighted is there's one point of water level information there. This is a USGS gauge, and that's the one spot on the main stem. Over the past 2 years, almost 2.5 years, that's been transformed to now start collecting and reporting water levels from, like Heather had mentioned, like 55 locations across, you know, this entire map here, even more. So what brings me here today, and I think what we wanted to learn is, you know, where would we like to take this from here? Unfortunately, our pilot has ended, and so we've had a lot of great things to learn, and I'd love to see like where we would take this, if this is something that we can support, or, you know, is it going to be something where, you know, in the near future, you know, is the network going to revert back to something like this? What I wanted to share with you, though, is not only are we working in Northeast Ohio, but these are the locations, over 150 across the Great Lakes, where we've been able to have a number of you know, people to give us feedback and a lot of lessons learned over these past couple of years. So the monitors are really cool. That's one thing. I think, you know, I love technology, and I love the interface of technology and water. This is the unit. It's pretty fun, I think, just to like pop it out and pop it back in and install it. But what I want to focus on is, you know, what we've learned over these past couple of years, and hopefully there's something of a little bit of a nugget to that you might find relevant here. So these are some photos of, you know, my team out in the field. And I'm going to share some of these conversations that we had. So here's one with there's a monitor kind of in the foreground there, and then in the background, that's actually the fire department. So we were speaking with Munson Township, and we learned that this monitor helped actually lower the homeowner's insurance by allowing the fire department to better quantify, how much water do they have access to, and ultimately turn that into a lower risk for fire safety, and then ultimately reduce homeowners insurance. So I thought that was pretty cool. We weren't expecting that. And then looking towards Jaga Park District, what another fascinating thing was we learned that there was a project going on, and in particular, happened in March 2021. So that monitor, we see it's capturing water levels. In March, we see a dip while there's some work going on, and then afterwards, the water levels go back up. So it's going to be pretty fascinating, I think, to see some pre and post construction work, like how do things change and evolve moving forward. And I think this is another example here that I learned recently from our pilot partners in Cleveland Metro Parks, where this is, depending on what you look at it, it's 5 to 10 year storm, but ultimately there's some restoration work, a construction project going on. And so to be able to have this monitor in there, I think the video probably says a ton too, but also I think it's supported by this data to be able to look at things and say, well, here's a big storm event that came through, and how this is how things are performing so far, and if any adjustments need to be made, now we have some evidence, video and data wise, to help support that. And so I think it's pretty fascinating, and some of these things are not immediate, but we'll see the benefits long term. So I wanted to highlight, this is again some of the work that's being done by CRWP of doing stream bank restoration, reconnecting streams with the floodplain, and looking just like how revitalized the ecosystem is. It's I think very fascinating now to be able to start collecting this information and use that to help support how well this is actually going. But you can see it looks fantastic. We're also across the Great Lakes working with wetlands. So I think that's a really fascinating one here, because we also have the opportunity to interface with wetlands and wildlife, and how the impacts of water quality that way. So it's pretty cool, I think, to see like there's multiple applications beyond just like maybe a more like urban and stream environment, but also in terms of wetlands and the benefits that they may have locally as well. A recent news event too that we just learned earlier this week was that in Owasco Lake, this is in upstate New York, one of the Finger Lakes areas, they the Watershed organization there, in partnership with the county and their local communities, they just got their 9 elements watershed protection plan approved. So I think that's very fascinating, because not only that, but we're listed as a partner in that plan as well. So this is work that they'll be doing that's going to ultimately get reported to the state level agencies, and to be a part of that, I think is very fascinating in terms of helping to track the non-point source pollution, and ultimately help them achieve their goals of reducing these harmful algal blooms, which I guess I didn't lay out this background, but this lake here, that's their source of drinking water. So solving this harmful algal bloom problem, improving the water quality there, it's I think it's something that we're fascinated to be a part of, this watershed improvement. And ultimately too, I think there's not only just response and water quality, but there's a fun side of this too. And so for example, in Michigan, recreational use is one of the biggest draws. And so what I've plotted here is a map of what's been identified as a number of spots for doing trout fishing. And ultimately, like an example of like, are the water levels too high or too low, or is it a good spot, especially maybe after a storm or something like that, for when you can get out there again and maybe drop a line in the river. And so in terms of, I guess, that line of recreational use, we're focusing pretty heavily on how do we get the data to be engaging. So an example that we've been working with Northeast Ohio and the regional sewer district out there is how do we take these lines, these blue, yellow, orange, purple, red lines, and turn them into something perhaps a little more engaging. So what we've been looking into is maybe another way of visualizing this info, not only as like just a picture on a page, but also maybe more of a visual animation this way. So highlighting this is exactly where the water level, or our best estimate of what the water level may be, and how that is in relation to these warning thresholds before it overtops a roadway or something like that. And so this is maybe another example of just to communicate really like what a flood threat may be at any given time and how that may impact some facilities. And another visualization here too, like if someone doesn't happen to have a drone or something like that, another way of representing that info and making it sort of immersive and engaging, where you can like hop on a mouse and on a computer or something like that and really start to pan around and see what may be happening on the ground. And so this has been interesting, I think, from a first response perspective, but also I think from just like a floodplain management perspective, as well as just having this estimate from a localized sensor measurement, like what the flood extent may be for a given event. And so pretty fascinating, I think, to be able to couple technology with water. And that's sort of the vision that we're striving for, is bringing a broader technological aspect to all the fantastic work that's being done in communities like here in the Chagrin. So right now we're collecting water levels. We're also pulling in rainfall info. And so being able to couple those, I think, is fascinating because it's leading to some exciting, I would say, results. So we're seeing some real-time response in terms of, say, like flood management and flood response, but also, looking towards the future of long-term stream restoration and ultimately like watershed scale improvements through these actions. So it's exciting to get to this point and learn all these things. I wanted to highlight now, like this is what we've learned over the past couple of years, is also how we're best going to price this as well moving forward. So it comes with a number of features here, and essentially what we are working with Heather and CRWP is a cost share with all the communities inside of the Chagrin River watershed. So what I want to emphasize here is, working with this cost share, it ultimately opens up all the data within the watershed to the communities and helps towards, I think, not only local improvements, but also a more watershed scale approach too, which I think is a very fascinating way to improve our water bodies and improving water quality. So these are the list of interested communities that we've had on board so far and member organizations. And I just wanted to say, like, we will be, since the pilot has come to an end, we will be going out there to remove sensors, but we would love to hear from folks, before we get out there next week or so, to learn, like, is this still something that anyone else would like to be involved with as well? So I just wanted to close this with some additional feedback that we've gotten, like almost testimonials, if you will, between saving folks time in the field or using this for recreational safety or preventing harmful algal blooms, or else just providing a broader general awareness. So I'll leave it at this, and if you are interested in continuing with this further or have any questions, I know like Heather and Laura, their emails are down there. Feel free to reach out with them, and we will be happy to correspond from there. Thanks for having me, Heather.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon, for that great presentation. Want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this pilot project, and we're really looking forward to working with you and our members to sustain the network and build out how we can deliver useful water level data, to whether it's to enhance flood warnings, help communities determine when they might need to close roads or maintain infrastructure, or help inform recreational users like paddlers and anglers of what the conditions are out on the river. And as Brandon mentioned, we're working to identify which sensors can remain in place and continue to deliver data to our member communities. And if you're interested in participating in a cost share agreement, either to maintain existing sensors or add sensors to the network, please be sure to reach out to me or Laura Bonnell as soon as possible. And before we move on to our next presentation, I'll just ask if there are any questions for Brandon. And seeing none, we will transition into staff activities and project updates, which will be led by our Deputy Director, Kimberly Brewster Shuffleton, and other members of our team. So I'll turn it over to you, Kim.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I'll be giving an update on staff activities and project updates. So CRWP staff have been busy providing landowners with technical assistance in 2022. So far in 2022, we have assisted 72 landowners so far. And I mentioned this at our last Board of Directors meeting, but just wanted to mention that we've been doing the best we can to be very efficient with this landowner technical assistance. We have been tasking our AmeriCorps or NowCorps members to assist with providing landowners with providing technical assistance. We've also been providing virtual assistance as much as possible. So phone calls or virtual meetings as much as we can to be as efficient as possible. And then we've also developed some standardized recommendations that are available to landowners. They are available on our website, and we can also distribute them directly to landowners as well. I'll show a couple of examples in the next couple slides. So here is a fact sheet that can be shared with landowners on how to maintain a healthy stream corridor that we distribute frequently to landowners. Again, it can be found on our website and as a handy tool for showing them how they can best keep that stream corridor healthy to prevent erosion, prevent flooding as much as possible, and to provide water quality improvements for the watershed. And then again, here's an example of some basic landscaping solutions for landowners that is on our website. Includes information such as how to control invasive plants and install native plants, and how to install rain gardens or take care of steep slopes they may have on their property to prevent or address erosion they may be dealing with. So again, we're happy to assist landowners and continue doing so through the rest of this year. But just wanted to remind you that we do have these standardized resources available on our website. We've also been moving along with helping communities with adopting and updating their codes to help incorporate natural resource protection and watershed management into those codes as much as possible. Particularly, we've been helping multiple communities update their stormwater and erosion and sediment control codes. We've also been helping communities with reviewing development plans, or say when a variance request comes in for something like riparian or wetland setbacks. And so that just ensures that watershed protection is considered early on in the development process or the decision-making process for that property. And this year we've completed 9 of those plan reviews so far. So now I'm going to share some information about some recently awarded grants and service agreements. We've been, as Heather mentioned previously, we have been partnering with Tetra Tech and Ohio State University on a project to study urban stormwater impacts. And we just renewed that contract with the partners to continue an additional year of that project. Also, another renewal, we are continuing our work with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources on the Coastal Non-Point Management Measure for local roads, highways, and bridges. This is for non-MS4 communities, and we're looking forward to continuing another year of working with Odnr and local communities on this effort. And then we also have 2 additional service agreements with Lake County Stormwater Management Department. This is to support the Master Rain Gardener, specifically public rain garden installations, and then also to support the East Lake Canoe Tour float held earlier this summer. Few more recently awarded grants and service agreements. CRWP, on behalf of the Central Lake Erie Basin Collaborative, applied to the Lake Erie Protection Fund successfully. We'll be receiving a grant to help with project development and conceptual planning to move projects forward to the point that they can be ready for applying for grants to fund those projects. So that can be anything from stakeholder engagement, site assessments, other types of planning activities. And so we're looking forward to getting that started with our collaborative partners and our members. We've also entered into several different service contracts with our members and some additional partners. And we're excited to be continuing to work with Hi-Fi, as you just heard from Brandon, to continue engaging users towards sustaining that water level sensor network for the Chagrin River watershed. Here are some recently submitted and pending grants and service agreements. I have a couple service contracts that we have proposed with our members and additional partners across the collaborative area. We also were invited to submit a full proposal to the National Coastal Resilience Fund. This was after a successful pre-proposal process earlier this year. And this is for engaging communities in the Dugway Brook area, which is a tributary to Lake Erie east of Cleveland. In the Glenville neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods there. And that is for stakeholder input and initial design for stream and wetland restoration there. So we're very pleased to be working on that, and we'll hear about the full proposal decision later on. We also submitted an Ohio EPA Section 319 grant application on behalf of the Central Lake Erie Basin Collaborative. This is to support our regional technical services that CRWP provides to other watershed organizations across the collaborative service area, so across Northern Ohio. That is still pending, and I'm eager to hear about the outcome of that one. Also, we assisted the Pepper Pike Club and the City of Pepper Pike, also the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and also in partnership with Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District on an Ohio EPA Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program nomination. And this was for a dam removal and stream restoration project at the Pepper Pike Club in Pepper Pike. Now I'd just like to share some information about some upcoming RFPs that will be issued for projects that we are either leading or supporting. One of them is the City of Mentor Norton Estates Stream Restoration Project. This is funded through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and it will be a $366,000 design build contract for dam removal and stream restoration. We are also working with Western Reserve Land Conservancy on their Chagrin River Headwaters project. This is funded through the H2 Ohio program, and an RFP will be issued for design build services around $281,000 for stream and wetland restoration. Also, through the Lake Erie Protection Fund grant that I just mentioned, we'll be issuing an RFP to have some consultant support for that project planning that I mentioned. So that's to help us move projects forward in that planning process, and that will be an RFP for $15,000. And then also the City of Willoughby is issuing an RFP for consultant support for conceptual planning for restoration and recreation enhancements in the Chagrin River corridor there in the city. Also, I would like to report on some upcoming grant deadlines to keep on your radar. One is the Ohio EPA Section 319 grant program. This grant is typically offered in annual cycles. Every now and then there are 2 cycles a year or so. We are anticipating an RFP release in fall of this year. So any day now we're keeping an eye out for the RFP. And as a reminder, this grant will support water quality improvement projects such as some of the stream and wetland restoration projects that we've been reporting on. Historically, there has been a match requirement, but the last few years there has been no local match requirement, and that is what we're expecting for this next round, but we will know here soon when the RFP is released. Additionally, the Clean Ohio Green Space Conservation Program is having a deadline for District 1, that's Cuyahoga County only, and those applications are due October 14th. So if you are interested in moving a project forward, it may be a little tight to get that started now for an October 14th deadline. But if this is something you're thinking about and you're in Cuyahoga County, we'd be very glad to help you in the next cycle move an application forward. One thing that the state of Ohio is going to do is starting next year, the deadlines for each district in Ohio will be synced. So they'll all be due at the same time, which that's not how it worked in the past. Typically, the districts would have deadlines all throughout the year, depending on the district. And a 25% local match is required for that grant. Couple other upcoming grant deadlines. The Ohio Lake Erie Commission has a new funding source available. It's the Coastal Resilience Grant Program. And the purpose of this funding is to initiate partnerships to address coastal resilience with an emphasis within underserved communities in Ohio's Lake Erie coastal counties. So they said typical awards will be between $75,000 and $100,000. Match is not required, but it is preferred. And applications are due October 3rd. Another is the Odnr Coastal Management Assistance Grant. This is another grant that's typically offered annually. This is for water quality improvement, coastal planning, education programs, land acquisition, research, public access, habitat restoration, and other types of similar projects. So awards are typically between $50,000 and $150,000, and there is a minimum 1-to-1 non-federal match requirement to make note of. Pre-proposals are due October 14th, and full proposals will be due December 18th. Additionally, the U.S. Forest Service Great Lakes Restoration Initiative has just released their requests for applications for this grant program. This grant funds reforestation, ecosystem restoration, and forest health improvement in the Great Lakes Basin. So awards are typically between $50,000 to $300,000, and those applications are due November 14th. And that's another one that's typically annual. As a reminder, the H2 Ohio program is funding a variety of different water quality improvement projects across the state of Ohio. Specifically, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources is seeking wetland restoration or floodplain reconnection or stream corridor restoration projects that will help reduce nutrient and sediment loads to Lake Erie. And so those nominations are accepted on a rolling basis by Odnr, and we have heard that they are looking for projects in Northeast Ohio. So if you have ideas, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you discuss those with Odnr. Finally, in the past, we've reported on the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant, the BRIC grant. I did want to just send a reminder that those applications are due January 27th of next year. This grant program provides support for disaster mitigation projects, capacity building, direct technical assistance, and other types of projects. So just a reminder that those will be due in January, but we have heard that Ohio EMA indicated that Ohio projects may not be as competitive at the national level due to some Ohio building code requirements in their current state. So we just wanted to share that feedback that we've heard. If you're interested in this program still, please feel free to reach out to us to discuss that, and we'd be glad to, but just wanted to share that information. So are there any questions about the grant programs or RFPs or pending or recently awarded grants that I just shared with everybody? Don't think I'm seeing any come through, but you can reach out anytime. If you do have questions, my information is on the screen. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Josh Myers, our Senior Project Manager, who's going to report on some exciting work in Eastlake.
Cool, thank you. So just gonna quickly talk about a project that was just completed in the city of Eastlake at what we call Erie Road Park. If you can't tell by the title photo, it's a permeable pavement parking lot. So we have to do the next slide thing. So Kim, go on ahead. So back in 2013, there was a grant that was acquired with the Eastlake Port Authority to put together this master plan for the park. So it calls out some different areas, play areas, parking areas. Some of the things are being moved forward, some aren't. So the first one, next slide, Kim. First one that we got in place, I believe it was 2018 when it was actually constructed and put in, but this is an ADA compliant canoe and kayak launch at Erie Road Park. It's out in Corporation Creek, which connects to the Chagrin River in Eastlake near the mouth. And this was the first thing. So the second part of this, next slide, Kim. We got some funding, but of course we only got pieces of funding at a time. So we were able to get design completed for one phase of permeable pavement and some walkways to the boat ramp. Next slide, Kim. And then we got some more funding to complete all of the design. So it was a couple years of progress for the design phase of getting this done. But there's also design for a bioretention cell, which is just a little south of this slide. So next slide, Kim. This was the parking area. This is the Chagrin River Salmon Association. And then at the park, there's a Chagrin River kayak and paddleboard rental place. So that's the building for that. And the parking area before was just gravel and like cinders, ground up cinders. So next slide, Kim. So we're just going to go through a couple photos of the construction process. There were 3 bays of permeable pavement parking that were installed, and they're just capturing what falls. There's no specific run onto them, but you could do that if you're looking to do this in one of your own parking areas. So this is just putting down the base layer underneath. And next slide, Kim. The bioretention cell that I mentioned, this is just, if you're staring at the building and you turn around, you'll see this bioretention area. So this is just the scooping of that. And there was a special, actually, if you go to the next slide, there's a special soil mix that was installed there. Sadly, due to the constraints of the grant, we had to get the vegetation installed before the grant ended on June 30th of this year. So all the plants went in the heat of the summer during a drought. Some of them survived, but we're going to have to do a supplemental planting either this fall or in the spring. But we did include a plant warranty, so that will be covered under the contract with the construction crew. Next slide, Kim. Just moving along, the pavers were put in. The city of Eastlake also had the area around paved with asphalt. Next slide, Kim. And then the fresh asphalt is in with all the pavers and the aggregate in. And then just one more slide showing it in use. Every year, aside from the before times of COVID, we have a canoe float with the city of Eastlake, the Port Authority of Eastlake, and Lake SMD. So this was this year, just this August. You can even see some of the straw still from the grass, but we're hoping to get some lines put in on the permeable pavement there. Next slide, Kim. Here is one of the one of the parking spots in use in the background. You can see the old coal plant, and there's also a natural play area that was installed with Nature Works funds from Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And then if you can see a nice little tree, we also had funds to put in some landscaping around the new permeable pavement. So we had 3,710 square feet of permeable pavement that was installed. The bioretention cell was 150 square feet. Total for the design was $37,903, and then construction came out to be $212,559.02. And then there were so many partners, so many funders. This basically went from 2018 until June 30th of this year. So we've got too many people to name, but they're all there. And we thank them all for their assistance with this project. And we're so happy that it's completed. So next steps at the park, we have a grant. Kim, if you could move forward. So on the other side of this park, there's a boat ramp for like actual boats, not just canoes and kayaks. And along the Chagrin River here, there is some erosion occurring. So we have funds to stabilize 330 linear feet of this bank, 80 feet along Corporation Creek, which would be just upstream of where the kayak launch was installed. There's a little bit of erosion by some culverts. And then this was through state of Ohio capital appropriations that the city of Eastlake was able to get. And the design build, which is River Reach, Enviroscience, and GPD Group, is $365,490. We're currently trapped in a permitting zone, waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers to take a look at the permit applications. But we're hoping that, fingers crossed, this could be constructed this fall. If not, then we're probably looking at a spring 2023 construction. And then I believe the next slide is the last one. If you have any questions, let me know. Nice little close up on the pavers there. And we move into phase 2 updates with Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Yep, so hello, everyone. I'm going to cover some phase 2 things very briefly, and we can keep moving on. So first thing I want to mention is, as a reminder, if you have not already done so, communities should have updated their illicit discharge detection and elimination code by July 1st, 2022, which is now past us, to remain in compliance with Ohio EPA's construction general permit. If you have not already updated that code, it's important to do that as soon as possible. Moving on, CRWP updated our model comprehensive stormwater management, erosion and sediment control, and illicit discharge detection and elimination codes to meet the requirements of the current Ohio EPA's MS4 and construction general permits. These codes are available for use off CRWP's website. If you would like to obtain an editable version of those codes, please contact Keely Davidson Bennett. You can find her contact information at the bottom of the slide. Additionally, communities will also need to update their stormwater management programs to meet the requirements of the current MS4 and construction general permits. CRWP is available to assist our members in updating their ordinances to stay in compliance. This assistance can include answering questions about our model codes, as well as reviewing draft ordinances produced by the communities. Excuse me. Additionally, CRWP presented on these model codes to the Ohio Stormwater Association and Cleveland chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers. This presentation goes into a bit further detail on what's updated in our model codes and what exactly they cover, and all that good stuff. So if you're interested, a link is available in this PowerPoint on this slide. Okay. So can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. Okay, other thing I wanted to touch on is I wanted to give a reminder that phase 2 communities are required to complete an MCM6 good housekeeping facility inspection annually. Communities under an industrial permit are required to complete these facility inspections on a quarterly basis moving forward. CRWP can provide a walkthrough to meet this requirement. However, a request must be submitted before September 30th, which is coming up in a few weeks. The community's first walkthrough of the year can be provided free of charge, but subsequent walkthroughs to meet the industrial permit requirement can be provided on a fee-for-service basis. Additionally, facility staff are required to complete a stormwater pollution prevention training annually as well. CRWP developed a training video that can be used to meet this requirement, which is also located on our website. This training can be completed anytime throughout the year at the service department's convenience. When staff do complete this training, it's important that the facility tracks the date, the time, and the staff who attended, so this information can be used in your annual phase 2 reporting. If you do use this video for your staff training, please be sure to notify CRWP and any other organizations that may assist you with your annual phase 2 reports, so we can make sure it's tracked and everything. That's about all the main updates I have for you, not a whole lot. If you have any questions about pollution prevention or good housekeeping, or if you want to get a facility inspection scheduled before the end of the year, please be sure to reach out to Kevin Saraceno. My contact information is located at the bottom of this slide. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. If not, we can hand it over to Kaylee, who has an update on the Master Rain Gardener program.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm just going to share a few updates about the Master Rain Gardener program. We just wrapped up our summer in-person course at Penitentiary Glen last week. We had 8 residential track students and 9 professional track students, which is a really great turnout for the professional track. So we're excited to see that. Great class, very engaged, and several are planning to join us for our upcoming public rain garden installations. So next slide, Kim. We'll be hosting 2 public rain garden installations later this month. We held a public installation earlier this year at Perry Village Hall, and Lilia will be talking more about that in just a few minutes, but we'll be hosting 2 more later this month, the first of which at St. Martin de Porres High School in Cleveland on September 23rd. Students and staff from St. Martin will be joining us for that installation, so we're pretty excited about that. And then the following week, we'll be doing another installation at South Russell Village Park on September 29th. Next slide, Kim. And then we just have a couple more upcoming events this fall. We're going to be hosting an appreciation celebration and plant swap on October 10th. We hosted this for the first time last year. It was a great success. We were able to recognize a lot of our outstanding volunteers and bring together the MRG community. So we're excited to be able to host that again this year. And then we will be having our annual program evaluation meeting. We host this every year with partners and any potential partners, as well as other MRG programs around the state. And we also invite Susan Bryan, the originator of the program from Washtenaw County, Michigan, to join us. We discuss the year and any improvements that could be made to the program, and also decide our next year's course dates. So we should have those dates to share with you soon after that meeting takes place this fall. Next slide, Kim. And then we have a couple of big milestones that we reached recently. We have had over 500 students register for a Master Rain Gardener program class since 2019 when the program started. And we have hit 120 rain gardens installed through the program. And those rain gardens are capturing an estimated 1,657,000 gallons of polluted stormwater every year. So very exciting how much the program has grown. Definitely thank our funders, all of our partners and members for sharing about the program and helping make it so successful. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. And if not, I will pass it off to Olivia for a Nowcore update.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm going to be giving an update on two of the events that I've been working on this quarter. First is our public rain garden installation of 2022. Next slide, please. Oh, and you can hit the next. Yeah, sorry about that. So on June 24th, 2022, Master Rain Gardener students, alumni, and instructors joined together to design and install a rain garden from start to finish in one day. This took place at Perry Village Hall in Perry, Ohio. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can keep going through the pictures. Sorry about the animations, folks. This involved removing the sod, digging the basin for the garden, adding and mixing in the compost, planting the plants, and adding mulch. Next slide. There we go. Together, we were able to install a roughly 150 square foot rain garden with about 86 native plants. This will prevent approximately 11,019 gallons of stormwater of runoff each year. The long roots of these natives will help to stabilize the soil as well as absorb stormwater much more efficiently than the sod that was planted there previously. In addition, the native plants will provide food and shelter for native pollinators such as bees, birds, and butterflies, while also enhancing the beauty of the landscape. Next slide, please. In total, we had 10 Master Rain Gardener volunteers in attendance, 8 of which used the rain garden installation to complete their certification. We are hopeful that this experience will give our volunteers the skills and confidence to install their own rain gardens in the future, whether that be for themselves, a friend or family member, or even for a client for our professional graduate. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, another event I've been working on is planning for the CLEB Central Lake Erie Basin booth at the NEORSD Clean Water Fest taking place this weekend on Saturday, the 17th. Next slide, please. The Central Lake Erie Basin Collaborative, CLEB, will be hosting a booth, which is back in person at this event. This event's back in person for the first time since 2019. The festival will be a day filled with live education, exploration, and entertainment from the creative team at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Attendees will have the opportunity to enjoy tons of activities like face painting, touch a truck, guided tours of the wastewater treatment plant and laboratory, free ice cream and popcorn, giveaways, and more. And I highly recommend it if you're able to go. Next slide, please. And as always, please feel free to follow us on social media if you would like to stay updated on what we are doing. In addition, CRWP regularly sends out e-newsletters. So if you're interested in that, feel free to head to our website to sign up for those. And thank you all so much for listening. And now I will pass it off to Eric.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give you a brief update about some public events we've held this quarter. Next slide, please. So the invasive plant swap, this was held in Aurora with some help from our friends at Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners. We were able to distribute 120 native trees and shrubs to over 40 people in 21 different communities. So really successful event. That was great. Next slide, please. We partnered with Odnr, Division of Forestry, to hold a forest management workshop. This was held in the Working Woods at Holden Forest and Gardens. John Keene and Bob Mulligan of Odnr gave talks about best practices as well as pollution abatement. And after the presentations, Jessica Miller from Holden Forest and Garden led us on a tour of the Working Woods where it was sort of an open discussion workshop. And that was really beneficial. We had partners from USDA, the Nature Conservancy, Geauga Park District, Kirtland Beechwood, and a few others. So, next slide. The East Lake Stormwater paddle, this was mentioned by Josh. So we partnered with the Ohio Scenic Rivers program, where we had 20 participants aged 12 to 74, representing 13 different communities, including Chardon, Eastlake, and Willoughby. Josh gave a presentation about the restoration project there at Erie Road Park, while Jeffrey talked to people about what it means to be an Ohio Scenic River and the importance of that program and that designation. So it was a really nice day and really exciting, really cool for people to get to see the historic mouth of the river. Next slide. We've been wrapping up this year. I've been assisting Kevin Saraceno and Keely Davidson Bennett with conducting headwater habitat assessments and bank erosion hazard assessments throughout Pepper Pike and Hunting Valley, which transitions perfectly into the next slide, where to wrap up the year, we will be assisting two academic field days, one for the US school in Hunting Valley, University School in Hunting Valley, geography senior class. We'll be doing a field day at McFarland Creek, as well as with the Willoughby East Lake School of Innovation. Tomorrow morning, actually, a 7th grade class where we'll be in South Chagrin Reservation. And I think with that, we'll pass it back to Heather, I believe, who will give us business.
Thanks so much, Eric and Olivia, and thanks to the entire team. I really want to thank the whole team for all of your great work, especially our Northern Ohio Watershed Corps members, Olivia Dropiak and Eric Kretzloff, for everything you've done throughout your AmeriCorps service year with us. Eric and Olivia have just done a tremendous job on a wide range of programs and projects, from technical assistance to landowners and helping with the Master Rain Gardener program, leading our speaker series, helping with a variety of different monitoring and restoration projects, and developing and leading many different engagement and education programs. And Olivia and Eric are going to be wrapping up their service with CRWP coming up here on September 30th, 2022. And we wish both of you well, and just want to thank you for all the great work you've done with us and what you've done to really make a difference here in the Chagrin River watershed. We're currently interviewing candidates for our now core positions, and we should have new members on board here in October, and we'll keep everyone updated on that. I also want to thank our senior project manager, Josh Myers, for his work leading our participation in the Now Core program, and both Josh and Laura Bennell for supervising and guiding our Now Core members. And finally, would like to thank all of you for joining us today, and all of our members, partners, and our sponsors and funders for your ongoing support and collaboration. Our next board meeting will be on December 8th of 2022, and we're investigating options for the format of future board meetings, and we'll keep you all up to date on this. We'll also have our next executive committee meeting coming up on October 17th. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Tomko to call for new business and wrap up the meeting.
Heather, Dan Troy's got his hand up.
Hi.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Heather, I recently went to something out at, Ohio Sea Grant, and we had a presentation there under the H2 Ohio program. There's a group that's working to restore or to clean up wetlands, getting phosphorus and nitrogen out of a lot of these wetlands. And I'm just wondering, do we have any candidates for this type of work in our area? And are you aware of that? Because they're not going to be able to get to them all, but they're starting to move on that. So again, it's not so much restoring wetlands; it's removing phosphorus and nitrogen, which are counterproductive to what we want wetlands to do, which is basically be the kidneys of our freshwater system.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Representative Troy. And we are aware of the H2 Ohio program, and CRWP has in fact received an H2 Ohio grant in partnership with the city and Western Reserve Land Conservancy for some land protection and stream and wetland restoration at the confluence of the East Branch and the main stem of the Chagrin River there in Willoughby. And we're also working on some other H2 Ohio projects that have already been funded and others that are in development with our members and partners. So we think it's a wonderful program, and already seeing some of those resources come to the Chagrin River watershed and to the other partner watersheds that we work with here in our region. Look forward to doing more projects with Odnr hopefully here in the near future. And Kim, is there anything you would want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Heather captured it all, but yeah, she mentioned we're kind of in the thick of implementing an H2 Ohio grant right now in Willoughby, and then we're really excited to begin working with Western Reserve Land Conservancy and Hunting Valley with a stream restoration and land protection project funded through H2 Ohio there as well. And as Heather mentioned, we've been involved in many H2 Ohio nominations, and Odnr has welcomed additional nominations for Northeast Ohio. So if you have ideas that might be a good fit, wetland restoration, floodplain reconnection, stream restoration, projects like that, that might be a good fit, feel free to reach out to us and we can talk with you about that.
It's not in the Watershed Partners area, but I believe there's a lot of work going on up there in the Menor Marsh, Heather. I don't know who's sponsoring that, but quite a bit of work. I was there in Menor Headlands, and I could see all the work that was being done. It's quite a bit.
Great, thank you.
With that, I'd like to thank the staff for these reports. I'd like to add my voice to wishing the departing AmeriCorps representatives good luck and all their future endeavors. I'd like to thank all the members for attending today's meeting, and I assume there's a motion to adjourn. And I see it's a dead race. Oh my God, it's a three-way race here. So we've got a motion and a second, and I'm assuming there's no objections to adjourning. So with that, we will adjourn, and again, see everybody in December, and perhaps we can even be in person. It'll be the first time in a number of years. So look forward to that. All right. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.